Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Ruffman. I am your host, John Ruffman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going. As I like to point out each and every day, it expands our base. There is so much to talk about this morning, but let's begin with James Comey. Of course, you and I know that James Comey is now appealing the indictment which was leveled against him as part of a vendetta by Donald Trump against James Comey. And that's the basis for his appeal. He has prepared, his lawyers have prepared, a document compiling all the times when Donald Trump has attacked James Comey, and all the times when he has called for his indictment, and all the times when he has made negative comments about James Comey. And the argument that Trump makes against Comey, from his point of view, is compelling. But I believe that Donald Trump and his attorneys made a major mistake. That is to say, they turned this whole issue on its head by having the president continually attack James Comey. And that's the whole point. I don't believe Comey would ever have been indicted if it had not been for Donald Trump's insistence that he be indicted. And therefore, the question arises, and legitimately so, is this a fair and impartial indictment? And the answer is no. James Comey is an effective leader. As director of the FBI, aside from the personal animus which Donald Trump used to get him out, he was viewed basically as a pretty good director. Oh, he blew it in the election of 2016 with his comments about Hillary Clinton just before the election. But aside from that, he was well liked by the members of the staff of the FBI, and he ran an efficient ship. Now, let's be clear about something. James Comey is not pure as the driven snow. There are real issues with James Comey and his abilities. But the one thing that is clear is, and I believe it to be absolutely correct, that if Donald Trump had not insisted on the indictment of James Comey, there would have been no indictment. So, what have Comey and his lawyers done? They have put together a statement, a multi-page statement, listing every single comment that Donald Trump has made about James Comey. Every time he called for Comey's indictment, every time he attacked Comey personally, all of those have been assembled in a single document and presented to the court with the argument that this indictment should be thrown out because it was purely an act by the President of the United States in which he wanted revenge against James Comey. That's not the way you build a legal system. I don't believe that that's the correct thing to do. And by the way, you've seen the same thing in the arguments being made about Letitia James. The same thing is being said now about Adam Schiff. And so there are many, many questions which must be posed by a court when an indictment is returned. By the way, an indictment was returned only because of Donald Trump's insistence. And that, my friends, may sink Donald Trump's ship when it comes to James Comey. We are going to watch this with great interest. But something else happened yesterday that was very important. An appellate court ruled 2-1 that, and this to me was absolutely amazing in every single way. It ruled 2-1 in favor of Donald Trump's position, and by so doing, sustained the idea that a president of the United States can, again, request an indictment and get it going. And more than that, a president of the United States has the ability, even in the face of the fact that he didn't tell the truth. Portland is not burning. It has never been burning. And Donald Trump made the case, and the court ruled 2-1 in his favor, that he had the power, the executive authority. This is revenge again. It is a revenge against a city which Donald Trump points out is ruled by Democrats. And that, again, is a faulty argument. Oh, they're going to rely on some tape. we are told, of Portland when there were demonstrations last year, and earlier this year. But those demonstrations did not result in Portland burning. Having been to Portland, I can attest to the fact that Portland is not burning. And so the question is, what happens next? And of course, there will be an appeal all the way to the United States Supreme Court. And as I indicated to you yesterday, the Supreme Court is going to play a critical role. Will Donald Trump be able to get away with vengeance and vindictiveness? It's a good question. I want to touch on something else. Are you watching what is happening in Gaza? I hope you're watching what's happening in Gaza. The Israelis pulled out and Hamas resurfaced. And are you watching what they are doing? They are killing all of those who they consider to be traitors. Now, I want you to stop and think for a minute. If you were an Israeli and you were thinking about what it would mean if Hamas were in a position of power again, wouldn't you be scared? And let me be clear, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, has pledged that he will defend Israel no matter what. And so I would suggest to you that despite the fact that Jared Kushner and Stephen Miller are now in Gaza, or at least in the Middle East talking, it's not going to do any good. Let me repeat what I have said in the past and which I will repeat over and over again. This is not a peace deal. It was an effort to have all the hostages released and returned, living and dead. In that regard, it is and was a successful effort. I point this out to you because we have a tendency not to look back, not to see what's going on today, and we need to. And I want to come back for a moment, if I can, to Ukraine. Please take a look at what's happening in Ukraine. Although it's not in the headlines, the Russian assault on Ukraine continues, and it is a devastating encounter. These moments in time need to be recorded, need to be accepted, and need to be acted upon. And the suggestion that peace will break out in Ukraine or in the Middle East because of the intervention of Donald Trump, well, it simply isn't true. You know it, and I know it. What happens now will depend on the world. Will the world understand clearly and precisely the dangers that we face? When I say we, I mean all of us, whether it is confronting the danger of Hamas and radical Islam, or whether it is the situation with Russia in Ukraine. All of these questions need to be addressed, and all of these questions, my friends, will be addressed. But in the meantime, it all comes back to a single factor, the question of the power of the President of the United States. Will Donald Trump be checked by the courts? That's the question. That's the question which needs to be asked on so many different levels. And let me assure you, what the Supreme Court does is going to be critical, and how we respond to what the court does will be even more important. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am John Rothman. Make sure to follow along and let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or a colleague so we can continue to grow and expand, which is, of course, our goal. My special appreciation to those of you who give me feedback. By the way, some of you who are avid Trump supporters, and you know who you are, will understand that my criticism is based on the simple fact of what he is doing. And to Gogo Zoger, the wonderful producer of this podcast, Gogo, thanks so much for all of your comments and your input, and for making sure we are up and running every day, even if there are occasionally some technical glitches out of our control. I am John Rothman, and you are listening to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I'll be back tomorrow, and I can't wait. See you then.